Hello there.
What is life like as a stomach?
Oh, boy, it was humdrum. I mean, until what's-his-name discovered Tony's Pizza.
Tony's Pizza?
Yeah, I was suffering from the pizza cravings until Tony's came along. Crispy crust and zesty sauces. Wow.
And so now... What's that?
Another pizza craving. Just thinking about Tony sets it off.
Oh, where are you going?
He's going to get a Tony's Pizza, and I follow him anywhere.
Does your stomach send you pizza craving signals? Oh, wow. Tony's, the Pizza Cravers Pizza. Available at the concession stand.
This is Tom Lewis on campus of the University in Athens, Georgia, and about to speak to Professor Bauer, who has reported sighting a UFO. Professor Bauer, exactly what happened?
On the way home, my car stopped, stalled on the road there. And I got out to check to see how, if anything I could do to fix it, what was wrong. And this strong blast of wind just threw me up against the side of the car. A few seconds later, when I could see, I saw this object pass over, moving rather slowly, but very positively powered. I'd say it had a disc-like look to it, but, you know, it's reflecting light. It's hard to see clear. But it was very definitely an object other than a reflection or a balloon or something.
What do you think this means in the whole scope of things, the whole universe?
Well, I think there's no doubt about it, that somewhere, somehow, we're being visited by extraterrestrial bodies that are visiting our planet and maybe looking it over.
Mrs. Akery, you have reported sighting an unidentified flying object.
And I called the yard man's attention to it. So he looked at it, and he said that he thought it was a weather balloon, that it couldn't be an airplane because it was moving too slowly.
How fast, really, would you say that it was moving?
Well, it was moving very slow at that time. But then he said that it was not a helicopter because it was making no noise. So it would have to be a weather balloon.
Did the speed of the object stay the same, or did it change directions or speed?
About that time that it suddenly turned and sailed across the sky very fast. Then it stopped and just stood still in the sky, just hovered there. And it slowly began moving over towards us.
Miss Akery, what do you think that you actually saw? What do you feel you saw at this time?
Well, I just have no idea what this thing was. I've never seen anything like it before. So it must be an identifying object, flying saucer that we hear about.
I understand something strange happened to you folks while you were here last night.
Yeah, that's true. That thing came up, and it moved really fast and came right over us and hovered right over us and picked us up. And it was just a rush of air. It picked both of us up. It's like being on the elevator, but no elevator. You know what I mean? It just lifted us up and then put us down on a metal table. And before we had time to think about anything or look around, there was this voice that kind of inside of you that said, be calm and don't worry about anything. And at the same time...
This voice, now, what, it spoke in English?
No, you just knew something inside. It wasn't going to hurt you. It said just lay there and no harm would ever come to us.
Like you weren't hearing anything at all. It was just inside of you.
And we just knew. We were still scared, but we weren't as scared as we were.
Well, the day it happened, Sam and I were out working the cattle. I rode down to this point and looked right up there, and I saw this object just sitting there. And I called Sam, and he rode over right quick. And this thing just sat there, and we both looked at it, and about that time it shot up to about 5,000 or 6,000 feet in the air and then shot over that way. Sam, how big do you think it was?
I would say 30 to 40 feet, cigar-shaped. We heard a screaming whine. And the closer to the top of the hill we got, the louder it got. Then we heard this explosion.
All right, this is where the plane crashed. You can see it looked like it came down toward my lake, then went up, and then it looked like something just forced it right down into this hillside. It just cut off the trees and just disintegrated, and just the wreckage you can see right here just scattered everywhere.
Then it looked like the plane just dropped very quickly here.
Right.
We feel that since there was no really probe into this crash, that and there has been several UFO sightings in this area for some time now, that we know what we saw.
between the ceiling and the sky. So much room. How you gonna see it empty without laying down? How you gonna keep it friendly when the moon goes down? Goes down. Night after night goes by. Out your window the same old sky. So many roofs over you. So tired of being beside myself. Mad shadows on both sides of you too. How am I gonna be myself again if I can't lose myself in you? Ooh, good company. How am I gonna feel at home again if you don't string me loose? Such company. Ooh, night after night goes by. Out your window the same old sky. So many roofs over you. Between the ceiling and the sky. Ooh, the attic in your eyes. So much room. How you gonna see it empty without laying down? How you gonna keep it friendly when the moon goes down? Ooh, night after night goes by. Out your window the same old sky. So many roofs over you.
On the afternoon of March 26, 1974, Alan Grimes, a young teaching fellow at the University of Gainesville, attempted to make a telephone call to a colleague to discuss some academic business. It was a call which was to change his life. Why isn't this on a military line?
You crazy? Have it on tape? Not on your life.
All right, what is it?
Group 6 radar picked up a signal. 10 minutes ago, 2 blips moving in formation toward the Buford Power Project. They were tracked there, and then they disappeared.
What do you want me to do about it?
Listen to this. Regional Control Grid reports a 15% drop in line transmissions in the Zone 1 readouts. The chief engineer says this is the 3rd time this month that's happened. They've checked the lines.
Wait a minute. Why are you telling me this? It's a routine matter, and I'm in the middle of a security meeting, and I don't have any time to waste on this nonsense.
I want to send out a couple of planes, and I want to track those things down.
Well, you don't need my authority to do that.
I have to hide it.
Hide it? Log it out as a routine flight check. I'll okay it. Is there anything else?
Well, it's just a feeling I've got.
Come on, out with it.
There's something out there. I know it. I can feel it.
Well, do it. Keep my office informed.
Gallagher speaking.
Your release code, please. Overreach factor +1, 1616.
Interceptors deployed, confirmed as equipment check.
What's the matter, son?
It's that light.
Oh, you must have just been having a bad dream.
No, it was like a big star.
A star?
Yeah, and it was covering me all light and making me naked.
That was your waking star. Everybody's got a waking star, son. Now you just roll over and go back to sleep.
Mommy, I'm still scared. The light hurts.
It's nothing to be afraid of. Now go to sleep. It's all right. Good night.
Hi, it's Alan Grimes. Listen, I was wondering about something. I thought maybe you could help me. Thanks. Do you remember that girl? Vivian something. That's right, that's the one, yeah. I had to talk to her. No, it has to be tonight. Well, do you think you could arrange it? Okay, fine, thank you. Bye-bye.
I've heard that you feel an extraterrestrial presence, beings around us.
Beings? That word is too dimensional. Energy. Yes, I feel that. I feel as if I might somehow...
Communicate with them?
No. With it. Yes, I would like that. Why do I feel so aware now?
Listen, I have to make an appointment. Do you have some time tomorrow?
I don't know.
Is he in?
Who?
Dr. Wheeler.
Can't you hear? He's still in the planetarium.
Thanks.
And that's basically the mathematics of its orbit, or arithmetic for some of you slower students. The appearance of Halley's Comet in 1066 AD neatly coincided with the conquest of England by William the Conqueror and preceded the rise of the Islamic Empire. It is also credited with such events as the Crusades, the Great Black Plague, the Reformation, the discovery of the New World, the decline of the Old. Comets made men choleric and warlike, rousing all manner of dark passions, from greed to sex, BP, before the pill. Yeah, sorry about that. Well, even today, comets still persist as strange bodies in our midst. Even with all that we know about these orderly phenomena, these bodies that obey absolute laws of motion, they still fire the imagination. It is curious, in a day of science and Star Trek, that there's always a flurry of UFO sightings before and after a comet visits us. Next week, we'll continue with the chemical makeup of comets and their variations. Well, Alan, what brings you here?
I'm still interested in your theories on extraterrestrial life.
Well, now that is flattering, but you didn't come here to trade niceties with an old relic like me.
I'd like to ask your advice on something.
Certainly. What is it?
Well, this might sound silly, but what's your scientific opinion of UFOs?
You might say my scientific opinion of UFOs is that they aren't scientific. They're nothing but visual phenomena which can be explained in terms of natural science.
But how do you know that for sure?
Quite simply. I've seen plenty of them. One I saw about 9 years ago was quite spectacular. I was in a research plane coming from Hawaii to California, about 20,000 feet. I was doing some reading, Playboy philosophy, if I recall. And this object appeared out the port window. First it shocked me. It was very bright and saucer-shaped. And then it occurred to me that what I was seeing was nothing more than the planet Jupiter and some of its moons. That was it, nothing more. If you know what you're looking for, you can spot a UFO anytime.
How?
Well, meet me at the observatory and I'll show you one.
You serious?
Absolutely. 8:30?
Sure, 8:30. Is there intelligent life out there, Dr. Wheeler?
I believe so. In our galaxy alone, the probability is 3 to 5%. There are stars which have planets capable of sustaining life. Of course, we're talking about 8 billion stars in all. And, of course, out of those, there are only 6 which are within 5 to 8 parsecs of travel.
All that space.
Whatever those beings are out there, they're still controlled by the same laws of physics as we are. The speed of light. That's the most important. If any alien intelligence had the technological ability to conquer space and time, they'd have to defy the speed of light.
That's true.
And nothing travels faster than the speed of light.
Still, we haven't proved that time can't be dilated or that matter can't be altered to assume different patterns of motion.
Sheer speculations. Einstein's theory has never been disproved scientifically. In fact, time and research have only made it more creditable. Now, aside from the reflections and mirages of the moon and other planets, there was this one about the owl which roosted in the tree and picked up bits of reflective fungus on his body. Foxfire. When it appeared at night, the first car that passed reported seeing a huge ball of fire with 2 orange eyes floating in the sky.
Well, if UFOs are also explainable, why do we hear so much about aliens?
Because aliens are a part of our modern mythology. People would much rather hear a fantastic story about space explorers than hear about a dull mirage. Keeps a myth alive. We've been brought up on myths. Santa Claus, the Sandman, Good Fairy, the Tooth Fairy, all the others. The notion of magic is a viable part of our lives. It's been with us since childhood. In the absence of scientific explanation, the myth will do nicely. Here, take a look. I'm showing you a UFO in advance. Oh, this isn't idle chatter. Otherwise, you're definitely in danger of mental regression.
Perhaps you're right. Something is bothering me. Partly it's a scientific curiosity. Partly it's just curiosity.
You understand the difference?
Does anyone? With one, you pry by asking questions and recording the answers. The other, you follow hunches and wonder where the maze leads you.
Well?
I think you should know.
I'm sorry for both of us, but I have my academic standing to protect.
I understand.
Good. You know, it's not the first sighting of a UFO around the Buford power plant. May well be some peculiar power mass. Curiously, what the hell do we know about electricity?
We know it's a power source.
So is imagination. Do what you have to, but you keep in touch.
I wish I had $100 bill, just one for every day. I would spend them on my own true love, but then I'd send her away. Cause it's that country love, get it while you can. It's only Saturday night.
I'm sorry to bother you, but I've been looking for you.
Oh, it's no bother. You want a beer?
No.
Is anything wrong?
Wrong? No.
Hey, come on. What is it?
There's an oppressive feeling again.
You said that before when we talked. Depression.
It's strong. And I just wanted to see if it became stronger.
With me? Why?
I don't know. I don't. But I just had to see.
And?
Well, it's as if what I feel, it emanates from you.
What is it? What do you feel? An image? What?
It's some energy. Something that I cannot quite grasp is happening.
Energy, activity, motion, what?
It's only Saturday night for the country boy. But it's Christmas every day for the city man. Yes, it is. Now I'm
Vivian, for God's sake, what is it?
Energy! Taking energy! Need! The light hurts.
Why did she come to me?
Remember, it was you who called me. You wanted to see her. I thought you were wasting your time.
But she touched something. It was almost as if she'd known. An hour later, enough people reported UFO sightings to make the national news.
UFOs? Alan.
Don't dismiss them like that.
It's sheer coincidence. She could be hypersensitive. I've just read an essay about the mothership theory. And another about Jonah being taken in by a UFO watership instead of the whale.
I know.
That was a beauty. That the throat of a whale is too small to swallow a man, and therefore it had to be a UFO.
But there is something that tantalizes us. I can feel it, right here in this room, between us and something else.
If you believe I'm secretly yearning to be converted to the quivering mob seeking alien contact, then you're wrong. I have no reason to believe such creatures exist. And I'm not about to sacrifice my meager intelligence to some whispery illusion. Not without debate.
Will you help me?
How?
I don't know. We're caught up in something, and I don't know how to get untangled. Would you help me get some equipment?
Do you think tools are a substitute for reason?
I need that extension of logic, that objectivity.
You're speaking of metaphysics on the one hand and technology on the other.
When the circle's drawn, they're joined.
She was really upset when I told her you were coming along. She couldn't understand that the difference between you and me is that you just represent another approach. I'm willing to risk it all. Isn't that what it's all about anyway? Throwing it all down and hoping that you can snatch up a few moments of truth. Don't you believe that? I know you feel it. It's the excitement of pitting ourselves against all the odds and reaching to the other side. In that phone conversation last week, one man kept referring to the other as Dave. Now the man who is Fort Heading is a General David Gallagher. David. Dave. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what he has to say.
Grimes? What does he want?
He's in communications research at Gainesville. He wants to talk with you about linking up our equipment with some of theirs.
I don't see how we can help him. Well, send him in anyway. We always got to keep up our well-scrubbed image, right?
Yes, sir.
General Gallagher.
Mr. Grimes?
How do you do?
Please be seated.
Thank you.
Now, what's this all about?
Well, I'm in communications research at Gainesville. And some time ago, I began to wonder if there were any other facilities nearby that might be integrated with ours to expand our research possibilities. Now, if your equipment is compatible, so to speak, I'd like to propose that we merge them.
Unfortunately, there's no way we could possibly link up our separate systems.
Why?
Ours is a closed system. It wouldn't be of any value to you.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Okay, let me explain. See, all our messages, sent or received, are scrambled and then piped through shielded underground cables.
Well, could the cables be tapped like ordinary telephone lines?
No, even if they could, all you'd hear would be a loud screeching noise. You couldn't unscramble it without a decoder, and even then you'd have to know the coding process used.
Tell me, General Gallagher, does the Army ever use anything other than this closed system for high-level communications?
You know, Mr. Grimes, that university of yours is coming up with more and more liberal ideas every year. Questions like that, I'm going to have to get you a security clearance next time you visit.
Forgot. This isn't a classroom. Well, if you like, I won't ask any more of my impertinent or pertinent questions.
I don't mind discussing it. The answer is simple. We almost never use regular telephone lines for our classified communiques. If there was some kind of an emergency, for instance, why, when we had to, why, we'd use the same scrambling technique that we do on our cables. That and other safeguards, of course.
But say in an emergency, could you receive a message over a public telephone that hasn't been decoded?
Of course not. That's strictly against regulations. That's the reason our system works, Mr. Grimes. Regulations. That's the reason that your proposal is completely out of the question.
General, I think I've taken enough of your time.
Oh, sorry it has to be that way.
Well, thank you for hearing me out, at least.
Happy to any time. I always enjoy assisting the university whenever I can. Our relationship has always been one of mutual respect. Good luck.
Thank you. I'm not sure Gallagher knows, but he's sly. I don't think he's going to be of any help to us at all. And if he should catch on to what we're up to, it's the end of the whole thing. Well, what about the interviews? What happened?
Well, they all admitted to the sightings. All but two, and they were both inside wondering why the electricity failed.
Look at this. Look at the pattern of those sightings. The whole thing makes a broad elliptical sweep right around the Buford Power Project.
Well, that's the location of most of the sightings, for years.
For years?
A few volunteered that they had seen these flying saucers for years.
Wheeler might have been right. It might be some power source never thought of before.
I talked with a man who works at Buford, and he told me about some markings on the structural steel supports. Discolorations. They've been finding them for some time now. Perfectly patterned, as if some tremendous heat source were touching the steel beams. Now, after that power droppage last week, 2 of those beams will have to be replaced. And it may sound ridiculous to you, but he described it as blisters. Small blisters.
Can we see that? Can we photograph that?
We can't. The Army's put a tight security around the plant and is supervising the replacement.
Well, I have to compile my notes and phone them into Dr. Mansfield. Just keep asking questions. And it might help if we could get close enough to that power plant to take some pictures of the Army security there. One more thing. Do you have any sensations about this place, about being here?
No, nothing.
I don't want you to feel that I'm making fun of you. It's important to me. Not just because of the research project, but for you personally. I don't want you to endanger yourself.
Now listen to me, Alan. We've decided to let you use our computer. It'll be interesting to see what you come up with. It won't do you any good without a 4-band transmitter, though. Good. And we can patch it into the computer and send you evaluation printouts of your interviews and sensor data. There's some question about the equipment you've already taken. I just hope this helps you enough to justify such recklessness. Alan, I hope you do find something, whatever it is. I won't explain that, just take it for whatever it's worth. Start transmissions at 8 p.m. Rivers and I will make the hookup tonight. You know the frequency. Best of luck. Was I right, Stan?
Right. I don't know.
I hope so. I hope so.
I live way out in the country. Pull my water from a well each day. I spend the springtime picking blackberries, jumping in the swimming hole.
They come around, tell me them whites is flying saucers. I tell them stories all the time.
I live way
Anyone
out
else
in
come
the
around?
country.
Some army fellas come out once. A couple of years ago. Didn't pay them much attention.
Things you never hear about in town.
Oh, little.
No.
Well, now, if you tell us about the things you've seen, that won't be a story, will it?
No, it'll be right. First time I saw something strange goes back a long time. When I was a little girl, I was sitting on the porch out here when all of a sudden the sun began to get dark. like something was moving in front of it, slow-like. At first, it only got covered up a little bit. And then before I knew it, it was now half gone. I don't have to tell you I was scared. Oh, yes, being a little girl and all. We were all scared but Papa. He said he'd seen that kind of thing before. Just as the sun got covered all the way, and all you could see was a great, big, black ball of light blazing out from behind it. A piece of it broke off. Yep, it fell straight to the ground. I think it fell in the lake. I looked around for it for years. I was just a little girl then.
When was the last time you looked?
Oh, the other night when the electricity went off. Must have been 6 or 7 of them. Sometimes there's 1, maybe 2. At least 3 or 4 of them went off somewhere, and the others went back down by the lake. Yeah, it must have been 3 or 4 of them that went off somewhere.
You know, it's unbelievable. All these years she's been watching these occurrences happen, and she's never attached any meaning to it.
It's like living with a myth. Do you realize she probably gave us the one bit of evidence that couldn't be coincidence?
The split up of the lights.
Absolutely. An energy force with a flight pattern.
Yeah, we're printing out your data now to see how your fixes are plotted. How's it look? It looks wild, man. Really wild. Yeah, we have got a pretty good idea about where you should place your sensors. Exactly. Yeah, on the opposite side of the lake. You know, as far away from the campsite as possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a minute. He wants to talk to you.
Alan, I want to know, and if you can't be absolutely scientific in your answer, at least be calm. Did the old woman actually report a breakup of lights? And the structural steel discolorations, could that be the metaphysical mind of your companion at work? There are guards, and no report from the army. Yes. I'd like to report this to Dr. Wheeler. Unofficially, of course. I'll tell him you phoned. I know all of that, but I just can't. You can do it without me. You don't need me. Yes, I understand all that, and thank you, but I can't. I'll keep an eye on the printouts here, and if you need more help, I'll see what I can do. Yes. Yes, I'll think about it, Alan. I'll think about it. All right. Goodbye.
You're not having any second thoughts, are you?
It's the strangeness of this place. I feel like I've been here before.
A déjà vu?
I don't know. Do you really believe that that equipment will verify what I sense?
I don't understand.
I feel like you're using me. That you're trying to bind my soul by your technology.
Well, we're all bound by it in a way, aren't we? Look, if there is something here, we'll find it. And if there isn't, then there's nothing to be afraid of. Hey, nothing is going to happen.
You won't be gone long, will you?
I'm going to the other side of the lake to set up the equipment. You can watch me from here. Take a walkie-talkie. We'll keep in touch. Vivian? Vivian? Come in, Vivian. Vivian? Vivian? Vivian, answer me. Vivian? Vivian?
Grimes, come in.
This is Grimes. Who's this?
Well, this is Storm Rivers. I'm here with Dr. Mansfield. Where are you?
I'm across the lake. Where's Vivian?
Well, no one's here except us. We found a rocky patch about a campfire.
Alan, I came out here because I thought you'd stumbled onto something. But bringing her was a mistake.
Her feelings about this place were so strong.
I never should have told you about her.
I would have heard anyway.
It's getting late. Why don't we start about right here?
Let's go. Vivian.
Go back. Get away from this place, all of you. Get away.
Vivian, what is it? My God, she's another person.
Have you noticed?
You die in a circle, nothing can save you, nothing!
Vivian, for God's sake, you're not dead. Vivian!
They're using me. They're using me, and I can't touch them. I can only feel.
Touch. Touch. Touch.
All right, child. There's nothing to fear. Nothing can happen to you. It's all right.
The pulse is normalized. Completely.
Of course it's normalized. What did you expect? Some molecular change affecting the blood? Just because she's had a distressing experience?
It was more than a distressing experience, for God's sake.
No, Alan. Now, you may have to admit that. Now, it's likely that this young woman has a talent for ESP, or whatever they call it nowadays. What the old woman saw as a girl could have been an alien ship that experienced a major power loss during an eclipse of the sun. It fell not from the sun, but from space, and it plunged into the lake where it has been submerged for all these years. But somehow, through technology that far exceeds our own, the inhabitants have managed to remain alive. And periodically they send out satellite ships to secure power, say, from the power plant, or to investigate the environment of the planet.
Well, why wouldn't they leave if they can accomplish all of that?
Perhaps because they haven't been able to repair their major power supply, to enable the mothership to generate enough thrust to leap out of the gravitational pull of this galaxy. Even advanced technologies have limitations.
You don't believe a word of that. Why are you saying it?
No, Alan, I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I haven't seen it. But I say it because we must construct some possibility in order to begin our investigation.
Possibilities. Is anything possible? Our minds conjure up such fantasies. Can they become reality?
I don't know.
Why does this bother us so much? Why did you get up, walk down here? She accepts all this as fact. We perceive it as myth. And yet here we are, the two of us, swept up in a compulsive search for something we're afraid to admit might exist.
My reason tells me I have nothing to fear. Your emotions tell you, give you the basis for your fears.
What about her?
She'll prevail.
Somehow, we've let it slip through our fingers. I don't know. I feel that we just have to watch and wait. When did you discover your awareness?
When I was a young girl. First it was the dreams. Yes, those dreams I would remember for days, sometimes even weeks. And then one day, my mother remembered what I told her. It was something silly, but it was real. And it happened. And I guess that was the beginning of it all.
Dreams. They're confusing sometimes. Sometimes they're so real it's hard to tell the difference between them and reality. Sometimes I even think, somehow, I feel like I'm teetering on the edge of an enormous chasm of time and space. It's a swaying sensation, like I'm about to fall in.
Alan, come in here. It's Dr. Mansfield.
What's wrong?
She's getting dizzy. Vivian, can you watch her?
Sure.
We better get a doctor.
Be ridiculous. Stop fawning over me as if I were some sort of sick child. I can take care of myself. Back to your equipment.
Well, you heard her. Tell me, Dr. Mansfield. Please, tell me now.
How is she?
I don't know.
Wow! Alan? Alan, come in here! Alan! Alan, come here! Look at that. Have you ever seen such a high concentration of energy? Where is it? Under the water. Under it.
Dr. Mansfield?
I think maybe I better go help her.
No, she'll be all right. Come on, let's get back to work. Can you give me a plot setting?
Yeah.
It's on 010. 04. 1004.
1004. Right. What do you make the range to be? Oh, forget it. I'll do it myself.
Dr. Mansfield? They're here, aren't they, Dr. Mansfield? They're here, I know it. I can't reach them, but I know they're here.
Real. It's almost here. With us. Dreams.
Is anything wrong?
I don't know.
What is it?
Can't you feel it? That sudden rushing into oblivion.
Something's wrong with Alan.
Alan?
He's... Vivian, you've got to come.
I can't leave her here.
You've got to.
No.
Just leave her. She'll be all right. He's hypnotized by something.
No, it's not that. There's something here, around us.
We've got to disconnect the equipment. I'll go down to the water. You start unplugging the devices.
Alan, I know. And there's nothing I can do but watch. It was you. All the time, it was you. Take us with you, please. Take us with you. Take us with you.
We're coming back. To where?
It is your fears which have shaped us to the forms you see. We are formless. We are pure energy. But you impose the images of your fears on us, causing us to take the appearances of what you see. You must cast those fears aside.
Fears create forms. Your fears create the forms you see. Alan, cast them aside.
I can't.
Cast them aside, Alan. Cast them aside.
It is you we seek. We are beyond the jaws of darkness, where the light springs from the consciousness of your mind and bends upon itself to become the truth. We have waited for you over 1,000 years. We are your waking star, and you, ours.
Vivian! Dr. Mansfield!
They are gone. Alan, the power we need emanates from you. It is the dreams of your mind, the power of imagination which will give us our freedom. That is the key. That is the energy we need.
How can I help you?
You must choose between two time spans, yours or ours. Give us the power to return, and your time will be destroyed. Nothing will be left. You will die. Only a memory in the mind of your friend will remain. If you refuse, all will end within your lifetime anyway. Your planet will crumble. Already your mind purifies itself of the memories, transforming the imagination into our needed energy.
A sense of presence.
It sounds so ethereal, non-dimensional, an existence in time and space. Communicate with you?
Is there intelligent life out there, Dr. Pickled?
I believe so. In our galaxy alone.
The first UFO sighting around the Buford power plant.
We know it's a power source.
So is imagination.
in the evolution of your race, only 3 have been chosen before you. You are the 4th to ascend.
What about him?
He will try to restrain you.
Oh, for God's sake.
There's nothing you can do.
What? Alan? Alan, wait! For God's sake, will you wait?
We are beyond the jaws of darkness, where the light springs from the consciousness of your mind and bends upon itself to become the truth.
Have him trapped inside a building he brought down. The rampage terrorized the town of Granby, Colorado for much of this afternoon and evening. King 5's Chris Ingalls is live in our satellite center with some pretty incredible video. Chris.
Laura, this man barricaded himself inside a bulldozer with at least 1 machine gun, maybe more. Tonight, cops have that dozer stopped, and they're trying to blast their way into the armored cab.
A man has gone berserk.
Home video rolls as police open fire on a one-man wrecking crew. The man at the controls is bent on destruction, pummeling a police car here and rolling through the mountain town of Granby, Colorado, destroying buildings and trading gunfire with police. Police couldn't stop the slow-moving bulldozer, which was armored with heavy iron plates welded in place of windows. Some townsfolk say the driver is a muffler shop owner, an expert welder who was outraged by a zoning decision 9 months ago.
He's madder than hell is what he is.
Witnesses say the bulldozer smashed properties related to the zoning case.
The property of the former mayor, who's now deceased, a former board member who was all on the board at the time of the zoning decision. So it does feel like they are all targeted.
Granby Town Hall.
City Hall and the police department were hit. The town's library was dozed, and various businesses, including the newspaper building in Granby's downtown, were damaged.
There's a SWAT officer standing on guard.
Police moved in when the dozer got stuck in building wreckage, and tonight officers appeared to be negotiating with the suspect. Police haven't released any statements, but an emergency management official says police have tried to blast their way into that armored vehicle. At this late hour, police have had no luck getting into the cab, even with explosives. So far, though, no word of any injuries. I'm Chris Ingalls live in the King 5 Satellite Center.
The scene looked like moments ago. This is tape. This is when we first arrived on scene, and it looked like officers standing on a hill above this earth mover turned tank were firing some pretty heavy arms at him, trying to find a weak spot, trying to find some way to immobilize. This man was now on the east side of Granby in what's called an independent propane company yard. We thought for a time he might actually be taking out some of the propane tanks. He kind of looked like that's what he was thinking about, and then he took off and headed into the downtown area again. Now, if you'll stay with me, photographer David Gregg is going to fast forward some of the videotape, show you just a little bit of some of the crazy things that this man has done over the course of the past hour and a half. And again, we want to emphasize, at last check, when we were last over Granby about 15 minutes ago, he had been stuck inside the back end of the Gambles appliance store, apparently taken out his own radiator, and the engine had seized up, and SWAT team members were trying to get inside the tank. But a tank it is. It's an earth mover no more. It's actually a tank. Do you guys have some questions that you would like to pass along? Those are the propane tanks that he was kind of milling about for a time.
Absolutely. Luann, can you take us through it chronologically so people get a sense? I know it all started about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Where did he begin? Do you know?
He started on the end of town. We are told unofficially, we want to emphasize that, this man owned a business next to the concrete company, that he had a long-standing beef with the concrete company in Granby, a very long-standing, decades old, it was described to us, and then he went after the concrete company first. He then made his way down Main Street of Granby and actually was taking out buildings as he passed, took out much of the town hall, took out the library, may have gone through the Liberty Bank. It actually looks like he might have punched in one side of a new Liberty Bank in Granby and came out the other. This was, these pictures were taken, again, this is fast forward, but these pictures were taken at about 4 o'clock or so. This would have been about an hour into the rampage. And you can see the armor plate on the side of that. It didn't seem to matter what police officers did with the rifles and such, and they could not pierce it. This was an earth scraper they moved in to try to do some combat, to try to in some way immobilize the scraper. Almost got to where he was turning it over at that point there, but the scraper is just no match for the cat there, the caterpillar turned tank.
Hey, if you're just joining us, it's now 5 o'clock. This is News 4 at 5. This story's been developing since about 3 o'clock. This is file tape of a man who's got into some bulldozer that he's made into a makeshift armored covered bulldozer, and he's damaged or destroyed half a dozen buildings in Granby, a town of about 1,500, about 50 miles west of Denver in Grand County. So far, we're hearing no one's been injured, but that has not been confirmed.
Luann, let's go back to you, please. Tell me, you talked about this a little bit earlier, but you look at that vehicle, you can't see anybody in there. Did you ever get a look at the person who's inside?
We never did, and I think that because he geared this up, outfitted it to act like a tank, that he has had a very tiny kind of viewpoint, point of view that he could see out of. We were skeptical when we first arrived on scene that there was any way for him to fire any weapons out of this, and I think that's exactly the case. What you see on top of there is debris, some venting, a whole lot of cinder blocks. He's actually pushing cinder blocks. These are remnants. This is debris from the buildings he's taken out over the course of the past hour or so prior to when these pictures were taken. Now, if you'll stay with us, he has just headed westbound again. This is tape. He has just again headed westbound into the downtown area. Right there may have taken taken out a radiator. He doesn't stop for light poles. He doesn't stop for buildings. He takes out the corner of the copycat store. Again, this is right in downtown Granby. And then the Gamble store next to this became another prime target. He backed up while the radiator's smoking, while he has any power left. He's going to attack that Gamble's appliance store. Many of the stores, the buildings, the offices that we have seen him take out apparently seem to have some rhyme or reason to him, some kind of history, some kind of ongoing gripe that were part of his problem with the city officials and some of the other business owners in Granby. He's going to turn around here and make one last stand and shove that Caterpillar into the Gamble's appliance store.
Lou, according to some witnesses, he reportedly also is armed with a machine gun. Can you see that from your vantage point?
We think there is absolutely no truth to that. We were hearing different reports, some along those lines. We also heard reports that at one point they were trying to get an armor-piercing machine gun brought in from Hot Sulphur Springs, which is about 10 miles down the highway. That apparently was their thought as to what their only hope was as to how to stop this man. But he actually ended up stopping himself. You can see now that long stream of wet pavement there. That's the radiator. Apparently took out the hose or some other part of a radiator underneath his Caterpillar. And he is going to make one last stand, go over the curb, and start punching his way into the Gamble store and into the back of that. When we left the area of Granby about 20 minutes ago, he had wedged himself in the back end of this store, and apparently had taken out the radiator, and he'd become immobilized, and we had SWAT team members trying to figure out how to get inside the Caterpillar.
And is that where it stands right now, Lou? Have they gotten inside? Do you know?
We don't know. We haven't been able to communicate with our crew on the ground up here. You can see he just is deliberate and determined, and nothing will stop him except his own equipment. What we're going to do, if you can stay with me now, he's going to make one last stand here. We're going to fast forward again and show you how far he gets, and then we'll take it up to where we actually have members of the Grand County SWAT team, the Sheriff's Office SWAT team, standing on top of the Caterpillar, trying to figure out how to get in. I'm sure police officers, sheriff's deputies were themselves assuming for a time that he was armed because they were trying to keep their distance, trying to take cover. Actually took cover, as you can see there, behind the scraper, but they seemed to realize at some point that he was unable to shoot out, and that at this point he was like a turtle on his back. He was very vulnerable. He had gotten himself wedged, he disabled the Caterpillar, and there was no place for him to go. The challenge now was to get him out of there. We don't know how that stands.
So the video we're looking at is of that department store you were talking about. Is also, we understand that the hardware store, I also understand that he did some damage to a bank, Liberty Bank, that was recently opened, and the town's newspaper building, a two-story structure as well. Sky
High News is the newspaper office there. We're told that that's virtually a rubble. We heard from Terry Hurdle on News 4 earlier, and she owns an antique gun shop, black powder gun shop at the other end of the store, and she said that somebody came running in and told her to run out because it looked like this man earlier was making a beeline for their store and then turned and went elsewhere.
Yeah, it seems again, as we talked about earlier, that it was very systematic, that he was picking and choosing where he was going. He was very deliberate in his choices.
Yeah, there may well have been a method to his madness, which is probably a good way to look at it right now. Pilot Mike Silva, photographer David Gregg, and I have taken a poll. We've been flying collectively about 70 years in this market. We've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. You know, Luann, we'd like to go now, and stay with us. We understand that you've got great video, and you definitely have a vantage point, and you understand what's going on, and you've certainly done a great job bringing us up to date. But we'd like to talk now with Bonnie Brown. Bonnie is joining us by telephone. And Bonnie, we understand that you are a friend, perhaps, of the man who is inside that bulldozer. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What can you tell us about this person?
Well, he systematically is going through the different buildings. That is correct, the information about the ongoing dispute with the concrete company. And he went to Gamble's because the person who owns it was on the town council that had to do with excessive taxes on his property that he purchased to build his muffler shop. And he talked with me about doing this back in January, and just in a conversation while we were having dinner. And, of course, I thought that he was just kidding. I had no idea that he would follow through with it and continue.
Bonnie, without giving us his name, and please don't, tell us, when you did talk to him, and he was planning this, according to you, did he mention the buildings he was going to hit, the specific buildings?
No, he just said that the people that caused him harm, that he was going to, I'm trying to think of how I put it, that he would pay them back
Bonnie,
for what they had done to him.
Take us again through his gripe. I don't quite understand what he was upset about.
Well, you know, I wasn't really paying attention because I thought that he was just kidding, and he had mentioned something about that he purchased this land to build his muffler store at a public land auction, and that unbeknownst to him, the man who had owned the property and that was losing it was bidding against him, and he wasn't able to exceed the bid that this person had bid on, so he ended up winning the property, and the man actually had annexed this piece of property under the table with the town of Granby, and that Marv didn't know anything about this, and so he tried to sell the previous owner, the land back, and he didn't have enough money. And so then when Marv was trying to develop this property...
Bonnie, let's jump in here. Let's be careful not to say names because obviously this person is not considered, he's a suspect.
He hasn't been identified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
he's still inside, we understand. Tell me about this vehicle. Did he actually say he was going to take a bulldozer and armor it?
Well, he didn't say he was going to armor it. He said, I'm going to take a bulldozer and to the town.
And did he say specific buildings, specific businesses?
No, because I didn't know the people that were involved. He just said that it was the town council members, and so I'm assuming that he would just be, because several other buildings that were taken out had to do something part to do with this land transaction and the taxes that were levied upon him, and he said that it cost him.
Don't you respect research at all? Don't you want to learn to know?
human mind penetrate the mysteries of the great beyond? Who knows? This picture is based upon an extraordinary experiment carried out by Drs. Hughes and Tooney of the University of Los Angeles. There is no doubt as to its authenticity. Testimony of people participating in the experiment, sworn to by a notary public, preclude the possibility of any fraud. This picture is a combination of factual data mixed with fiction.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Dr. Diaz, Dr. Esther, what a pleasure to have you here.
The pleasure is all ours.
I hope you're feeling well.
Very well, thank you. And you?
The same old laborers, always working.
Trying to find new ways to help patients die painlessly.
Please don't choke. But won't you come in? My husband is in there waiting for you.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm most grateful to you for having taken the trouble to come to my home this evening.
It's no trouble, Doctor.
We're delighted. Who'd complain? At having the opportunity of visiting with such a beautiful young lady as your wife, Flora.
Flatterer.
How are you, Pinkate?
Fine, Doctor.
Please sit down, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Dr. Diaz, Dr. Esther, I've taken the liberty of calling you here because I think it's time I revealed something very serious.
Let's hear it, then.
It's about the Aztec breastplate and the bracelet, gentlemen.
How's that? Why, the whole thing was forgotten long ago. It's a closed book, Doctor.
And that's exactly what I thought, too. But things have happened lately that I think you two should know about. My friends, be patient and allow me to tell you a story. Although you already know part of the history, there are some things that you ignore. I think the best thing to do is to begin at the beginning. You both recall, do you not, that occasion years ago, 5 to be exact, when we held a convention on psychiatry in this city. I attended and gave a talk on the results of my studies related to the regression of a patient to a past life through the use of hypnosis. My theory was greeted with amazement and incredulity by the members of the convention. Among others attending that day were you, Dr. Esther, and you, Dr. Diaz. You both had come with Dr. Krupp, and my theory was made the subject of ridicule, and I left the convention bitter and defeated. I got to the house feeling unsure of these ideas. I'd been squelched, but I just couldn't accept the other opinions of my theories. I was sure they could be proven. That night, Flora offered to undergo a hypnotic test. She was fully aware of the danger of the experiment. Assisted by her father and by Pinkate, I hypnotized her. During her past life, Flora had lived among the great peoples of the Aztec. She told us such strange things, amazing things. Far back in those ancient years, her name had been Xochi. She was deeply in love with a brave and high-born warrior called Popoca. Their love was so strong that it would not answer to reason. So they decided to run away, even though it was her sacred duty to preserve her maidenhood and be sacrificed to the god Tecatlicopa. But they were discovered by the tribal priests. As punishment, the warrior was buried alive, and an eternal curse was placed upon him.
kaki popokaki. Umate me kawo ni wiki, me palkoni. Ni misongupilia, ingwani que le huía, mayewikatinesti. Mone malkayelis, moyoloyas.
As for Xochi, she was adorned with the bracelet and the breastplate, which were engraved with hieroglyphics, indicating where the Aztec treasure was hidden. Then they cut out her heart. But as she began to regain consciousness, in the exact moment I came to the end of my little experiment, she struggled and began to shout. Flora had a terrible attack of some kind, and her blood pressure dropped to such an extent that we were afraid she might die. But a couple of weeks later, we discovered that Dr. Krupp, a man who had suddenly become a dangerous criminal in the underworld, had been there spying during my experiment. The experiment had been a complete success, but since we realized that no one would believe us unless we could come up with absolute proof, we decided to search for the breastplate and the bracelet. Flora acted as our guide, and we discovered a hidden passageway beneath the pyramid of Teotihuacan. Professor, I think we're up against a dead end.
It can't be possible. The Aztecs wouldn't build a secret passageway just to have it end up for no rhyme or reason. There must be some way through that wall.
Professor, it sounds hollow.
But it's so thick that it's senseless to try to break through.
Pinkate, lend me a hand, please. Flora, come on.
This must be a little room beneath the pyramid.
Yes, but I know it isn't the temple.
Look what I found! Come here!
What is it?
It looks like a well.
Well, I think it's an air shaft, but undoubtedly it will lead us somewhere.
Probably to the temple.
Well then, what are we waiting for?
Come on. After descending several flights of stairs, we suddenly encountered the hair-raising face of the god Tezcatlipoca. We had reached the lower temple and the Aztec tomb that Flora had mentioned. And there we came across the skeleton of what had once been Xochitl. On the chest lay the solid gold breastplate.
Xochitl, this is horrible to think I was she.
You know, we're the first persons to break in here. It's a world that slumbered all these years and begins to awaken now. We've found what we wanted so badly.
No, Edward, don't do it.
Now at last I'll be able to demonstrate this to my colleagues and prove my theory.
It's simply amazing.
Just a few days after I got the breastplate, I asked you all here, including Dr. Krupp, as you'll recall.
Certainly. I'd say that it was the greatest experience of my life.
And mine, too.
You must also recall that I said that I'd study the breastplate and that I'd try to decipher the hieroglyphics and see what they meant, since I knew that the message would tell how to find that hidden treasure.
Yes, but I remember your telling us that you also needed the bracelet.
Exactly, Doctor. One object complemented the other. Without the bracelet, it was simply impossible to decipher the code. So I decided to go back for it, in spite of the Aztec curse that surrounded it.
He who defiles the tomb of the Aztecs and finds the sacred plate will run the risk of death and his family as well, until the breastplate is replaced.
I depended upon the help of my father-in-law and of my good friend, Dr. Pinkate. So once again, the three of us got together and returned to the tomb. When we reached there, and I was just about to pick up the bracelet, my father-in-law stumbled on something and called my attention to it.
Look here. Look there. Doesn't that grave belong to Popoca?
Yes, according to the legend, it does.
In that case, where is he now?
We heard a strange shuffling noise that was coming in our direction. And then out of the darkness appeared the ghastly and terrifying Popoca. The Aztec warrior had come back to life. Come back to life to retrieve the objects that had been left in his care for eternity. Let's put out the lights. I have an idea. I don't think he can stand it. Turn them on. Shine them in his face. Turn them off again. Lights again. You better run. I'll follow you. PK! Professor, help me! Whoa, pull me faster! perfectly frank, I thought my time had come. If it hadn't been for my friends, I'd have been torn to pieces.
It's incredible. A mummy comes back to life after hundreds of years in a sepulcher.
Dr. Diaz, you have my word of honor that the story I have been telling is the truth. Popolka, as I told you, was punished because he loved young Xochi. His curse was to guard the priceless bracelet as well as the golden breastplate, to do so for all eternity. Under this terrible curse, his poor soul would never find repose.
Continue, Edward.
Well, the bat on many occasions tried to steal these objects that I had found. Time passed rapidly. I thought the whole business had been forgotten. But I found that the Aztec curse still followed us. One night, the mummy came to this house to get his treasure pieces. And he kidnapped Flora. He tied her to the sacrificial stone where the skeleton of Xochi had lain for centuries, and placed the bracelet and the breastplate on her. Obviously, the mummy intended to make history repeat itself. He was going to cut out Flora's heart and offer it to the god Tecatlicopa. The three of us rushed to the pyramid to try to rescue Flora. And we stood transfixed for a moment at the scene we saw. The mummy was standing next to the stone. He was holding a knife high in his right hand. I jumped to the floor and luckily was able to hit the blade with a bullet. It lunged at me and its enormous hands got hold of my throat. Life was leaving me rapidly when Flora's father suddenly held a cross up in front of its face. With this, he was able to hold the mummy at bay while we freed Flora. In a frenzy, we untied her and got her away from the stone. Then the professor ordered us to get her out of the pyramid. His tone was so adamant and I was so concerned for Flora's safety that we obeyed him blindly. But when we got out, I realized that he hadn't followed us, and I decided to go back for him. In that very instant, a tremendous explosion shook the pyramid. The professor had given up his life in order to save ours. Since the mummy had stayed under tons of boulders and the bat had been sent to prison, of course we thought the whole business had come to an end. But it didn't happen that way. The bat, who is really the infamous Dr. Krupp, he broke out of jail. In his mad determination to get my treasure, he kidnapped my daughter and Flora, and then hypnotized her.
Do tell us the rest, my friend. Then what happened?
In this state, she took the doctor to the Aztec tomb. He immediately located the mummy, taking the breastplate and the bracelet. Well, Krupp called me on the phone not too much later. I was ordered to go there and decipher the hieroglyphics to enable the demon to locate the treasure.
And you agreed?
Can't you see that I had to obey? To save my wife who had been kidnapped by the doctor, and my little girl.
But there's another thing that you should know. It'll surprise you to hear that Krupp once said that he needed that Aztec treasure to work on an experiment. He also said that the experiment, of course, was costly.
Now you know how I was forced to do it. I went to Krupp's laboratory and began to decipher the hieroglyphics. In the hands of those criminals, our lives were in grave danger. Our only hope was that the mummy, guided by unknown forces, would be able to find Dr. Krupp's hideout just the way he had found my house on a previous occasion. I dragged the thing out as much as possible, but the moment arrived when I could stall no longer. I finished it.
That's fine.
I hope you'll keep your promise now and set us all free, Doctor.
Eh? Oh, yes. You know what to do now, don't you, Bruno?
Just what are you going to do? Murderers?
What do you think?
You unscrupulous pig!
No! Doctor, help me! Can't you hear? No! Help me! No! Please help me! Help me!
Mummy realized who the criminals were and settled accounts with them. Then, when he saw the doctor trying to escape, he picked him up like a rag doll and threw him into a pit full of rattlers.
Ah! Ah!
Afterwards, with the breastplate and the bracelet in his hand, he slowly shuffled away into the darkness and soon was lost from sight. I'll never forget the strong affection I had for Flora's father. Such a kind man whose intelligent advice brought about our salvation.
And the mummy went back to the pyramid?
No. The explosion destroyed his temple. He had no reason to go there.
In that case, can't you tell us where he is?
Permit me to continue. All these tragic happenings couldn't go unattended. So I went to the police, and they heard the whole story. Then I returned to Krupp's hideout, accompanied by the chief of police and a couple of his men. You can imagine our surprise when we discovered the place was completely empty. The laboratory had been dismantled, and the bodies of the criminals that the mummy had killed had also disappeared. Continuing our search, we hurried to the snake pit. I was awestruck when I realized that the body of Dr. Krupp was no longer down there. Then, to our horror, we discovered that there was a small door in the back wall of the pit, through which the doctor could have escaped. Obviously, the doctor had escaped, and strangely, I don't think he'd been bitten.
The man's running loose.
So that would mean that the doctor kept trying to come by those articles, so that he could locate the treasure.
You're right, my friend, he did just that. He began to bother us a couple of weeks later. It happened quite suddenly, you see. One dark night.
This is the house.
Do you really think this plan of yours is going to work, Doc?
You'll see. Now, I want you to be quiet. Keep still and don't make the slightest noise. Flora, it is my wish that you come to my side. Flora, I command you to come to me. Flora, I command you to come to me. Flora, are you listening? Come here to me. Flora, do not try to fight it. Come here. Flora, do not try to fight it. Come here. Flora, are you listening? I command you to come to me. Flora, you are to do as I command. Come here. You can hear the waves that are being sent out by that mummy, can you not? I know well that you're able to lead us to him.
Yes, I can.
Then tell us, where is Papoka?
In the ancient cemetery.
Come with me.
What are you doing here? Answer me! What are you doing here?
Come now, Flora. Come on, we must hurry. Is this the place?
Yes.
You devil. You stinking devil. Oh, I'd like to chop your rotten flesh to pieces.
It'd certainly be great to do so, but you know it's not possible now. We're going to make my experiment. So we must wait.
Wait. When I got so much hate eaten down deep inside of my guts, you ain't got no idea what it is to live like this. Hiding myself from everyone and everything. Just because of that stinking monster.
Calm down now. I promise you that he'll be destroyed. But give me time. Just a little time. It won't be too long before you can have your revenge. Let me get the breastplate first, the bracelet. So near to them, and yet so far because I can't touch them. It's too dangerous to do it. He'll wake up in an instant and destroy us. But I'll get them back. I swear it. No matter how long it takes me. You devilish mummy. Come on, we better go now. We'll be needing a lot of time if the plan I have is going to work out.
Anything you say.
Come, Flora. Now listen to me well, Flora. You'll go up to your room, and you'll go to sleep. And when you awaken, you'll act quite normally. And you won't recall a thing. Do you understand? You won't recall a thing. Now walk. Go on. Go on.
Well, good morning.
Good morning, sweetheart.
You must have been very tired. We were waiting down here to have breakfast with you. We could both eat a horse.
Bacon and eggs, like always? Nothing for me, Maria. I have a terrible headache, dear.
What's that you've got on your gown?
It's all dirty. That's funny.
You've been down in the cellar.
No, sweetheart. I don't know.
But look at your slippers. They're all muddy.
Oh, come on. What have you been up to?
Nothing. It's funny. These are new slippers. I just bought them. And now they're dirty.
I think you went out last night.
No. After I took my bath, I went to bed because I was tired.
Yes, but you got up later on, didn't you?
I did? No.
Yes, because I woke up a couple of times and you were not in bed.
No, you're mistaken, darling. I assure you I didn't leave my bed for a second.
You went out last night, honest, Mom.
Come on, let's forget the whole thing for now, all right? Remember, she has a great imagination. Tell me, has your headache passed?
No. I'm going to lie down for a while. Excuse me, please.
You children go out and have your breakfast.
Yes, Daddy.
Come on, Pickled, I want to talk to you.
Oh, boy, what a liar you are. You shut your big mouth. You're the liar.
Pickled, I'm very worried. This attitude that we've observed in Flora is not normal. What's more, I'm afraid that the bat has something to do with this.
Then you really think that child was telling the truth about it? And that her mother got up and went out?
Yes. It's quite probable.
But Flora insisted she didn't leave her bed for a second.
Because she can't recall anything. When she got up last night, she was sleeping.
I don't understand it. It seems impossible.
I'll tell you what I think. She was hypnotized and could be under post-hypnotic suggestion. So it seems to me that the bat controls her from a distance. It's logical. This strange attitude with Flora indicated that unscrupulous villain Krupp made her leave the house during the night.
But where did they go to?
Can't you guess what he's trying to do? You certainly know what he's after, the breastplate.
And besides that, the bracelet.
Precisely, Pickled.
Then you think that she was made to go along with Krupp, and he wanted her to guide him to find the mummy.
Exactly, and you and I must go there. I'm going to find out if that scoundrel stole those objects.
But that'll be difficult. You can't investigate without any clues.
Yes.
Listen to me a second. Suppose we took her slippers to the laboratory to have that mud analyzed. That could help us, don't you think?
Yes, yes, that might just be the solution. We'll take them, but I don't think she should find out. We'd better do it all in secret. Come on.
Yes, no, I'm quite sure. It's embedded in the dirt. Of course, it's a small quantity, Doctor, but your suspicions are correct. They're pieces of marble.
You're sure it's marble?
Can you identify its source? Is it a special kind?
No, it isn't, but it's a fine quality. It might be a Carrara marble, I can say that. It's used in the construction of mausoleums, as far as I know.
Thank you.
This is the last cemetery. We've seen all the others. If we don't find anything here, we'd better forget about it.
Hello there.
Good evening. Tell me, are you the watchman here?
Yes, sir. Anything I can do for you?
Oh, yes. We'd like to ask you a few questions.
We'd like to know if you've seen anything strange the last few weeks or more recently. Anything very suspicious in or around the cemetery pertaining to one of the graves.
Are you from the police?
Yes, that's right, my friend, and we're after a very dangerous criminal whom we suspect has been hiding in one of the cemeteries around the city.
Well, the fact is, something pretty doggone curious did happen. Just 2 nights ago, I was surprised to run into a young woman here wearing a kind of white robe. She seemed to be asleep, and 2 men entered the grounds with her. And when I asked them who they were, one of the guys slugged me, and they left me out cold here on the ground.
Then we'll be taking a look around the grounds.
You can do anything you want. Anything you want.
You see, I was right. At last, we're on the trail.
Now, the tough part is yet to come, because we've got to walk around till we find the mummy.
Look, we'd better separate now. Go that way, Pinkate. I'll go over there. Go on.
Edward! Edward, come here!
What happened?
Look!
Come on. Look, the breastplate and the bracelet.
They didn't take it.
All this I've just told you occurred almost 5 years ago. We visited the crypt from time to time to take a look at the mummy, with its breastplate and its bracelet, too.
And the bat, is he still around?
You know, he disappeared from sight. Then, just a couple of days ago, we read an article that is very interesting. We were profoundly surprised by it. According to the article, a couple of nights before, a cadaver had been robbed from the amphitheater.
And the individual who did it was the bat, of course.
Yes. In the beginning, we had some doubts, since the man who had been attacked couldn't offer us a description of his assailants. But later on, our suspicions were confirmed. Yesterday, there was a burglary in the Radiology Institute. The thieves took a machine that uses radium. They also stole a brain out of a laboratory. This time, the police were able to identify the crooks as the Bat and all his band. As a matter of fact, they were almost captured.
Are there any good clues, Doctor?
Lead is the only metal capable of resisting radiation. Lead material in this city is handled by many wholesalers. After visiting the first 3 or 4... good morning, sir.
Good morning. What can I do for you, gentlemen?
We're sorry to be a bother to you, but is it just possible that lately you sent out a large shipment of lead? Could you give me that information?
In the last 2 days?
Or it could be a week, more or less.
Well, let me check. We keep a record of our shipments in this book. Yes, here it is. Exactly 5 days ago, we made delivery of 20 plates of lead shielding 4 inches in width to number 22 Shade Street.
Many thanks.
You're welcome.
After investigating for days, at last we got the address. I think that Bat had made his hideout there, or his laboratory.
Well, I don't see why this thieving Dr. Krupp would go to the effort of stealing radium, a complete human brain, and also the body of some man.
Do you recall that the Bat once told Flora that he was working on a new experiment? I think that is the explanation.
It's possible. But there's no doubt that Dr. Krupp and his criminals are planning to cause trouble.
Certainly, that's also my opinion. Now, I'll tell you why I called you here tonight, gentlemen, because you both are scientists, and you'll be able to combat the situation. Just in case we end up being murdered.
You mean to say you two are thinking of going there without taking the police along?
Yes, because you see, we're still not sure that that's the Bat's laboratory. And the police still don't have much faith in us because of what happened before. Flora, in case we're not back here at the house by 3 in the morning, I'm leaving it up to you to call the police.
Edward.
Freeze, you two.
Dr. Armada. What a pleasant surprise.
Bruno?
A souvenir of the mummy. The boss is going to be very happy to say hello to you two again. Come along. Boss! Look what I found out in front.
Dr. Armada and his shadow. This is a pleasant surprise, gentlemen. After such a long time, I come face to face with such good friends. Exactly where did you find them?
Out in the shop there, looking around.
I offer you my congratulations, because you are magnificent detectives. Did anyone else come with them?
Nobody else. I saw them when they drew up in the automobile, alone.
Bruno, aren't you going to attend our guests the way they deserve? Go fetch chairs for the gentlemen.
Sure, right away.
Tell me, how's your beautiful and charming wife, Dr. Armada? I learned about your marriage, and I admit it's a bit late to say it, but receive my congratulations. Pinky, how are you these days? Are you still the champion of right? There's no doubt about it, and I'm glad. Come over here. Who would have thought that you'd be here at the moment to witness this? Because you're about to see something that will astonish you, truly unbelievable. When you feast your eyes on this, I don't doubt that you'll be amazed, Doctor, and you'll be the first to congratulate me. Frankly, I'm happy that you came here to visit us, Dr. Armada. You're a man who is basically an intellectual, and that's why you'll be able to understand the greatness of my invention. I think you remember that time we met. Since then, I've worked day and night without resting for a minute. And during all that hectic time, I explored powers that no one else knows. All those great mysteries, the very basis of creation.
Then that means that you defy all the limits that were put down by God.
There are certain secrets that we could explore and discover rapidly. And that's why it's such a shame that fear impedes us so, Dr. Amata.
You're completely mad and ignorant also.
Don't you respect research at all? Don't you want to learn to know why a body functions? I do. And at last I found the cause. Take a look at this heart that's beating. It lives. It lives and pulsates because I gave it life. And if I can give life to inert material, why can't I give it to the bodies that are damned to death and decay? No one can possibly imagine how I worked. When I dug in the mud with these hands and entered tombs, I tortured many animals with pleasure to find the answers to man's existence.
You're insane, do you know?
I decided to create a man. A breathing body. A real man. And I have made that dream come true. There you have the greatest creation of man's intelligence. A human robot, Doctor. Tonight I'm going to find out. Tonight I'm going to put it to the supreme test. I'll activate the creature.
But this is monstrous, Doctor.
If it lives, then my triumph will be complete, Dr. Amata. Because I'll get the treasure, and I'll be rich. This thing I created has enormous power, and you'll watch it. Now then, life for the robot. Doctor, watch this.
.2:30 already.
Don't you think it would be better to call the police now?
I don't know what to do.
No. Let's all wait till 3 a.m. and respect the doctor's wishes.
Suppose they're in danger. Oh, this is great, Doctor! The greatest invention! You can see it standing there. A marvelous machine, a tribute to the great intelligence of man. A human robot. With this shining creature, no human being on this earth can oppose me. Do you understand? Do you know what could have happened to you right now? Had I not diminished the electric force, the current that makes him move, and that is contained in this apparatus? With the slightest twist of this dial, you two would have been converted into atomic dust instantaneously. Because the robot utilizes radium and has sufficient power to disintegrate anything in the world. Tonight, it meets the mummy. Bruno, prepare the special plates. The lid will shield my truck. Hurry, time is flying. Tonight, my robot has to make a visit, you know, in a certain cemetery. What time is it? 10 minutes to 3. I told you there's no time to lose, Bruno. Hurry, get going!
I want the police. It's urgent. Headquarters, I want to talk to the chief of police.
I want you to stop and think about this. A new kind of world. An army of robots obeying me. The human species. Sheep obeying my orders. A new theory that man has not dared imagine. I'll make some more. Maybe 1,000. Now that I know how, the rest is easy. But for that, I need money. That treasure of the Aztecs. That's why tonight the mummy will give me what I want.
Boss, it's all set.
Fine. You two will stay here and guard our distinguished friends. They mustn't get away. They're an extremely important cog in my plan. I'm sorry that I can't take you along, but you'd only get underfoot. But I'll return, gentlemen, to inform you that I could destroy the mummy. And with the gold breastplate and bracelet in my hands, you'll begin once more to translate the hieroglyphics. This time you're helpless, because no one knows you're here. Dr. Amara.
Let's hurry. I'm afraid for their lives.
Oh, come on, get up! Come on, let's go! Come on! Lock it! Come on! Get it! Give me that gun! Come on!
Flora.
What happened here?
Chief, you can arrest those 2 men there in the other room.
Come on.
Dr. the Bat has gone to the tomb where the mummy is. Let's hurry. There's no time to lose.
What's that? Hurry, Bruno. Take the breastplate and bracelet off of him.
Yes.
At last, you devil. At last I'm gonna have my revenge.
Popoka, in memory of the great love that once existed between us, stop all this death and destruction. Take these objects that are yours to guard and go back to the grave of our ancestors, where we should never have interrupted your eternal sleep.